Sofia Mendoza wiped the sweat from her brow with the back of her hand, careful not to let any droplets fall on the freshly polished marble countertop. The penthouse apartment on the 42nd floor of the Pinnacle, one of Chicago's most exclusive residential buildings, gleamed under the late afternoon sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. She'd been cleaning since 7 that morning, making her way through 3 different luxury units, and this final one had taken longer than expected. The owner, some big-shot executive who was rarely home, had apparently hosted a party that left the place in surprising disarray. "Almost done," she muttered to herself in Spanish, a habit from childhood that surfaced when she was tired. At 28, Sofia had been working for elite cleaning services for nearly 5 years, specializing in high-end properties where discretion and thoroughness were paramount. The pay was decent, better than most cleaning services, and the hours were flexible enough to accommodate her night classes in graphic design at the community college. She glanced at her watch and felt a spike of anxiety. 4:57. The last train that would get her home at a reasonable hour left at 5:15, and the Pinnacle was at least a 12-minute walk from the station on a good day. Sofia hastily gathered her cleaning supplies, shoving bottles of eco-friendly cleaners and microfiber cloths into her large canvas bag. She did a final scan of the apartment, windows streak-free, bathroom fixtures shining, floors immaculate, before heading to the service elevator. As she waited, she texted her supervisor to confirm completion of the day's assignments. The elevator seemed to move with particular sluggishness today. Sofia tapped her foot impatiently, calculating the minutes. If she ran part of the way, maybe she could make it. Missing that train meant waiting another 40 minutes for the next one, which would put her home well after her younger sister Lucia's theater performance at the high school. When she finally reached the lobby, Sofia hurried through the gleaming space, nodding briefly to the concierge behind the marble desk. Outside, the weather had turned dramatically from the clear skies of the morning. Dark clouds loomed overhead, and the first heavy drops of rain began to fall as she stepped onto the sidewalk. Perfect. Just perfect. By the time she'd gone 2 blocks, the rain had turned into a deluge. Sofia hunched her shoulders, wishing she'd checked the weather forecast that morning. Her thin jacket offered minimal protection, and water seeped through the canvas of her sneakers. She picked up her pace, dodging other pedestrians huddled under umbrellas. When she reached the station, breathless and soaked, she knew from the empty platform that she was too late. The digital display confirmed it. The 5:15 to Oak Park had departed 3 minutes ago. The next train wasn't until 5:55. Sofia's shoulders slumped as she thought of Lucia waiting backstage, peeking through the curtains to spot her sister in the audience. She pulled out her phone to call her mother, but the battery indicator flashed red. Only 2% left. Of course. "You've got to be kidding me," she groaned, managing a quick text to her mother explaining the situation before the phone died completely. She tucked it back into her pocket and looked around the station. A few commuters waited for other lines, everyone keeping to themselves, many absorbed in their phones. Outside, the rain continued to pour down in sheets. Sofia considered her options. She could wait 40 minutes for the next train, arrive home too late for Lucia's performance, and probably catch a cold from sitting in wet clothes. Or she could try to find a ride-share, which would cost at least $30 she hadn't budgeted for this week. Neither option seemed good. Ethan Parker loosened his tie as his driver navigated through Chicago's downtown traffic. Rain battered the windshield of the Audi, and even with the wipers at full speed, visibility was poor. Ethan stared out the window, half listening to the financial podcast playing softly through the car's speakers. At 34, Ethan had already achieved what most would consider extraordinary success. His software company, Parker Tech Solutions, had been acquired by a tech giant for an amount that still seemed unreal to him, even 3 years later. The acquisition had left him wealthy beyond his imagining, and at somewhat loose ends professionally, though he'd stayed on as a consultant. Today's meeting with potential investors for his new venture had gone well. yet he felt strangely unsatisfied. The faces around the boardroom table had blurred together. More men in expensive suits, more carefully crafted pitches, more talk of disruption and innovation. Sometimes Ethan wondered if any of it really mattered. "Terrible weather, sir," his driver Raymond commented, as they crawled through the rain-slowed traffic. "They're saying it might flood in some areas." "Oh, yeah. Guess summer's officially over," Ethan replied, pulling himself from his thoughts. He checked his watch, almost 5:30. He had no real plans for the evening, just another quiet night in his spacious Lincoln Park home that still felt more like a showpiece than a place where someone actually lived. As they passed the train station, Ethan noticed a woman standing under the minimal shelter of the entrance, clearly soaked to the skin. Something about her posture, the slumped shoulders, the way she stared at the phone in her hand with obvious frustration, made him take a second look. "Raymond, can you pull over for a second?" Ethan said suddenly. The driver gave him a questioning glance in the rearview mirror, but complied, easing the car toward the curb near the station entrance. "Just wait here," Ethan said, grabbing his umbrella from beside him. He wasn't entirely sure why he was doing this, but something compelled him to get out of the car. As he approached the woman, he could see she was shivering slightly, her dark hair plastered to her face by the rain. She wore simple jeans and a light jacket that had clearly provided little protection against the downpour. A large canvas bag sat at her feet. "Excuse me," Ethan said, holding his umbrella over her, "but are you all right? Do you need some help?" Sophia looked up, startled by the stranger's voice. She took in the tall man in the expensive suit, holding what appeared to be a high-end umbrella over her. Her first instinct was caution. A woman alone didn't just accept help from random men, especially well-dressed ones who approached at train stations, but something about his expression seemed genuinely concerned rather than threatening. "I'm fine," she said automatically, then sighed. "Actually, no, I missed my train. My phone's dead, and I'm going to miss my sister's play." She hadn't meant to share all that, but frustration loosened her tongue. Ethan nodded, taking in her situation. "Where are you headed? I have a car. I could give you a ride." Sophia's eyes widened with surprise, then narrowed with suspicion. "That's very kind, but I don't know you." "Fair point," Ethan said with a slight smile. "I'm Ethan Parker. I work in tech. My driver's right over there." He gestured to the black Audi idling at the curb, where Raymond could clearly be seen in the driver's seat. "I promise it's a legitimate offer, no strings attached." Sophia hesitated. Under normal circumstances, she'd never consider accepting a ride from a stranger, no matter how well-dressed or seemingly polite. But these weren't normal circumstances. She was soaking wet, her phone was dead, and her sister's performance started in 40 minutes. Even if she caught the next train, she'd never make it in time. "You'd really drive me all the way to Oak Park?" she asked skeptically. "It's not that far." Ethan shrugged. "And this weather is miserable. Consider it my good deed for the day." Sophia looked again at the waiting car, then back at Ethan's face. He didn't look like a serial killer, though she supposed they rarely did. But her instincts weren't setting off alarm bells, and the prospect of making it to Lucia's performance was too tempting. "Okay," she decided. "Thank you. I'm Sophia, by the way, Sophia Mendoza." "Nice to meet you, Sophia. Let's get out of this rain." They walked to the car together, Ethan holding the umbrella over both of them. Raymond stepped out to open the back door, looking mildly surprised at the unexpected passenger, but maintaining his professional demeanor. "Raymond, we need to make a detour to Oak Park," Ethan said, as they settled into the back seat. "Sophia needs to get to—" He turned to her questioningly. "Roosevelt High School," she supplied. "It's on South Ridgeland Avenue." "You got it, sir," Raymond nodded, pulling away from the curb. Inside the warm, dry car, Sophia suddenly became acutely aware of her appearance. Her clothes were soaked, her hair a mess, and she probably smelled like cleaning products after a full day of work. Next to Ethan in his clearly expensive suit, she felt distinctly out of place. The leather seats were so luxurious she was worried about getting them wet. "Thank you for this," she said, trying not to fidget. "My sister would have been heartbroken if I'd missed her play. She's playing Juliet. It's her first lead role. Romeo and Juliet at a high school. Isn't that a bit cliché?" Ethan asked with a small smile. Sophia found herself laughing despite her discomfort. "Totally cliché. But don't tell my sister that. She's been practicing her death scene for weeks. Our bathroom has been permanently occupied with her getting into character." Ethan chuckled. "Sounds serious. How old is your sister?" 16. She's convinced this is her big break into acting. My mom and I don't have the heart to be realistic about her chances." "Hey, someone has to make it big. Why not her?" "That's exactly what my mom says." Sophia smiled, relaxing slightly. As Raymond navigated the rain-slicked streets, an awkward silence fell between them. Sophia glanced at Ethan surreptitiously. He was handsome in a conventional way, tall, with neatly trimmed dark hair and the kind of confident posture that came from privilege. She guessed he was in his mid-30s, though his serious expression made him seem older. "So, tech, huh?" she finally said, breaking the silence. "What exactly do you do?" Ethan seemed to hesitate before answering. "Software development primarily. My company created enterprise solutions for logistics management." He gave her a sidelong glance. "That's usually where eyes glaze over when I explain my job." Sophia laughed. No, I'm still with you. Though I'll admit I'm not exactly sure what enterprise solutions actually means in practice. It means we made expensive software that helped big companies keep track of their stuff," Ethan simplified with a self-deprecating smile. "Not exactly saving the world, but it paid the bills." "Paid them pretty well, from the looks of it," Sophia commented, then immediately worried she'd been too forward. "Sorry, that was rude." "Not at all. I've been fortunate," Ethan said simply. He didn't elaborate, and Sophia didn't push. Another silence fell. Through the window, Sophia watched the city pass by, the buildings growing shorter and more spread out as they headed west toward the suburbs. The rain continued to fall heavily, drumming on the roof of the car. "What about you?" Ethan eventually asked. "What do you do when you're not rescuing teenage Juliets from the tragedy of a missed performance?" Sophia tensed slightly. This was always a tricky moment when meeting new people, especially wealthy ones. "I work for a cleaning service. Elite Cleaning Services. We handle high-end properties downtown." She waited for the subtle shift in his expression, the slight cooling that often came when people learned she cleaned houses for a living. But Ethan just nodded. "That explains how you ended up at that particular station. You must see some interesting places." "You have no idea," Sophia said, relieved by his matter-of-fact response. "Last month I cleaned an apartment where every single thing was white. White furniture, white walls, white appliances, even white decorative items. It was like cleaning a cloud." "Sounds sterile. And impractical. Who chooses white everything when they have 3 large dogs?" Ethan laughed, a genuine sound that transformed his serious face. "Someone who doesn't do their own cleaning, obviously." "No, obviously," Sophia agreed, finding herself smiling. "Is cleaning your primary gig or—" Ethan left the question hanging. "For now," Sophia said. "I'm taking night classes in graphic design at Malcolm X College, hoping to transition into something creative eventually, but it's a slow process when you're working full-time." "Graphic design, that's interesting. What drew you to that?" The question seemed genuine, and Sophia found herself giving a real answer rather than her usual abbreviated explanation. "I've always been artistic, ever since I was a kid. My dad used to bring home these old magazines from the hotel where he worked as a maintenance man, and I would recreate the advertisements with my colored pencils." She smiled at the memory. "When I got older, I realized there was this whole profession where people got paid to make visual communications, but college wasn't really an option right after high school, so I'm doing it the slow way." Ethan nodded thoughtfully. "Sometimes the slow way gives you perspectives that the traditional route doesn't." "That's a nice way of looking at it," Sophia said, surprised by his insight. The car turned onto a tree-lined street in Oak Park. the suburban setting a stark contrast to the downtown skyscrapers they'd left behind. Tudor-style homes and Victorian houses sat back from the road, their gardens lush despite the rain. "It should be coming up on the right," Sophia directed, leaning forward in her seat. "There, that's the school." Raymond pulled up to the front entrance of Roosevelt High School, a brick building with large windows illuminated against the darkening evening. Cars filled the parking lot, and people hurried inside, many carrying umbrellas or wearing raincoats. "Looks like we made it in time," Ethan observed, checking his watch. "It's only 6:05. "The play starts at 6:30, Sophia said, relief evident in her voice. "I can't thank you enough for this. You've really saved the day." She reached for the door handle, then paused. "I wish I could repay you somehow." "No need," Ethan said quickly. "Just enjoy the play." Sophia hesitated, then impulsively reached into her bag and pulled out a slightly damp business card. "Here, in case you ever need expert cleaning services," she smiled, "or in case you want to let me know how I can properly thank you for the rescue." Ethan took the card, looking at it for a moment before tucking it into his jacket pocket. "Maybe I will. Break a leg to your sister." "Thanks again," Sophia said, then dashed through the rain toward the school entrance, her canvas bag clutched to her chest. Ethan watched her go, the business card a small weight in his pocket. "Back to Lincoln Park, sir?" Raymond asked from the front seat. Ethan considered the rain-blurred figure of Sophia disappearing through the school doors, then the empty evening stretching ahead of him. "Actually," he said slowly, surprising himself, "I think I'd like to see a high school production of Romeo and Juliet tonight." Raymond's eyebrows rose slightly, but he simply nodded. "Yes, sir. Shall I find parking?" As the Audi circled the lot looking for a space, Ethan wondered what exactly he was doing. This wasn't like him at all. He didn't attend high school plays, and he certainly didn't follow women he'd just met. But something about Sophia Mendoza's smile and the way she'd spoken about her sister had sparked a curiosity in him, a desire to see something real after so many days of boardrooms and business proposals. Just one play, he told himself. What harm could there be in that? The auditorium of Roosevelt High School hummed with pre-show energy. Parents clutched printed programs, teachers directed last-minute seating arrangements, and teenagers slouched in clusters, attending only because extra credit had been offered. The space wasn't large, perhaps 300 seats facing a modest stage, framed by heavy burgundy curtains that had seen better days. Sophia slipped into the back row, still slightly damp from the rain, despite her best efforts to dry off in the bathroom. She scanned the crowd, finally spotting her mother's familiar figure 5 rows from the front. Elena Mendoza sat straight-backed and dignified, her dark hair streaked with silver and pulled into a neat bun. Even after a full day working at the hospital cafeteria, she'd managed to look put together in a simple blue dress that Sophia knew she reserved for special occasions. Sophia made her way down the aisle, whispering apologies as she squeezed past knees and handbags. When she reached her mother, Eleanor's face brightened with relief. "Mija, I was worried when I got your text." "How did you get here so fast?" She switched easily between English and Spanish, a lifelong habit. "You wouldn't believe it," Sophia said, settling into the seat beside her mother. "Some guy offered me a ride when he saw me stranded at the station." Elena's expression shifted immediately to concern. "Sophia Maria Mendoza, how many times have I told you never to get into cars with strangers?" "What were you thinking?" "Mama, relax," Sophia placated. "He had a professional driver and we weren't alone. I checked him out first. Besides, it was either that or Miss Lucia's big night." Elena made a disapproving sound but didn't press further. "Well, you're here safely, gracias a Dios. Lucia has been asking about you every 5 minutes. I told her you'd be here no matter what." "And I am," Sophia smiled, squeezing her mother's hand. "How's she doing? Nervous?" "Like a cat on hot bricks," Elena said, her face softening. "But the drama teacher says she's going to be wonderful." As they chatted, Sophia glanced around the auditorium, taking in the familiar faces of neighbors and Lucia's classmates. Her gaze swept past the back rows, then returned with a jolt of surprise. There, standing just inside the entrance, was Ethan Parker. He'd removed his suit jacket and loosened his tie, but even in this casual state, he looked distinctly out of place among the jeans and casual wear of most attendees. "Mama," Sophia whispered, nudging her mother, "that's him, the guy who gave me a ride." Elena turned discreetly. "The one in the expensive shirt? Why is he here?" "I have no idea," Sophia admitted, equally puzzled. She hadn't expected to see him again, certainly not tonight. Their worlds were so different. What interest could he possibly have in a high school production in Oak Park? Before she could consider further, the lights dimmed, and the drama teacher, Ms. Williams, stepped onto the stage. Her enthusiastic introduction praised the students' hard work and talent with the kind of genuine passion only dedicated educators can muster. Sophia clapped along with the audience, but her mind remained on the unexpected presence at the back of the room. Ethan found an inconspicuous spot in the back row just as the lights began to dim. He debated with himself all the way to the entrance about whether he was crossing some sort of line by attending. He'd given Sophia a ride as a good deed, not as an entree into her life. Yet here he was, settling into an uncomfortable plastic chair to watch teenagers perform Shakespeare. The production was exactly what one might expect from a high school drama club. Earnest, uneven, with moments of surprising talent amid the forgotten lines and awkward blocking. The boy playing Romeo had clearly been cast for his height, rather than his acting ability, and he moved stiffly around the stage, projecting his lines with mechanical precision. But when Juliet appeared, Ethan understood immediately why Sophia had been so determined to attend. Lucia Mendoza was a natural, her movements fluid, and her delivery impassioned without being melodramatic. She brought a genuine vulnerability to the role that made the centuries-old dialogue feel fresh. The family resemblance to Sophia was evident. The same expressive eyes and elegant hands, though Lucia was taller and moved with the dramatic flair of someone born for the stage. As the play progressed, Ethan found himself genuinely engaged, not just in Lucia's performance but in watching Sophia's reactions. From his position, he could see her profile when she turned to whisper to the woman beside her, presumably her mother. Sophia's face was animated with pride, breaking into spontaneous smiles at Lucia's best moments. There was something compelling about her unguarded joy, so different from the measured enthusiasm he encountered in his professional life. By the time intermission arrived, Ethan had forgotten his initial discomfort. The lights came up and the audience stirred to life, conversations bubbling up as people stretched their legs or headed for the refreshment table in the lobby. Ethan debated his next move. The polite thing would be to simply enjoy the second half of the play and leave without intruding on Sophia's family evening. But as he watched her making her way toward the lobby, an impulse to connect again won out over propriety. Sophia navigated through the crowded lobby, balancing 2 cups of lukewarm coffee from the refreshment table. Her mother had sent her on a mission for caffeine, claiming she needed it to stay alert for the second act after her long day at work. The truth, Sophia suspected, was that Eleanor wanted a moment alone to send a quick video clip of Lucia's performance to their relatives in Mexico. "Your sister's quite talented." The voice came from just behind her, and Sophia turned to find Ethan standing there, hands in his pockets, looking both out of place and strangely at ease. "You stayed," she said, unable to keep the surprise from her voice. "I mean, you actually watched the play." "I did," he confirmed with a slight smile. "It seemed like the perfect way to spend a rainy Thursday evening." Sophia raised an eyebrow skeptically. "Really? A high school Shakespeare production was your idea of a perfect evening?" "Well, maybe not initially," he admitted, "but it's been more entertaining than my original plans of takeout and spreadsheets." "Wow, those must have been some truly thrilling spreadsheets," Sophia teased, finding herself smiling despite her confusion about his presence. "The most thrilling, projected Q4 earnings with multiple contingency scenarios. His deadpan delivery made her laugh. "So you abandoned future-predicting spreadsheets for Romeo and Juliet? I'm not sure if that's a step up or down, honestly." "Definitely up. Your sister is remarkably good. She has that quality that makes you forget she's acting." Sophia's expression softened with pride. "She really does, doesn't she? She's been performing since she was 5. Started with living room productions where she made me play all the supporting roles." She paused, then asked the question that had been in her mind since spotting him. "But seriously, why did you come? You didn't have to." Ethan seemed to consider his answer carefully. "Truthfully, I'm not entirely sure. It just seemed interesting, more real than most things in my day." He shrugged, looking slightly uncomfortable with his own candor. "And I was curious to see if Juliet would live up to all the bathroom rehearsals you mentioned." Well, now you know she absolutely does," Sophia said, deciding not to press him further. "But listen, I should get back. My mom is waiting for her coffee, and the second act is about to start." "Of course," Ethan nodded. "Enjoy the rest of the performance." Sophia hesitated, then made a spontaneous decision. "Would you like to join us? There's an empty seat next to mine." The invitation surprised them both. Sophia hadn't planned to say it, and from Ethan's expression, he hadn't expected it either. "I wouldn't want to intrude on your family time," he said after a moment. "It's not an intrusion if you're invited," Sophia countered. "Besides, my mom will want to thank you personally for making sure I got here. She's big on proper gratitude." Ethan hesitated only briefly. "In that case, I accept. Lead the way." As they made their way back to the seats, Sophia felt a flutter of nervousness. What had possessed her to invite him? This wasn't a date. It was her sister's play, for goodness sake. And Ethan Parker, with his driver and his enterprise solutions, wasn't exactly the type of man who normally occupied her world. "Mama," Sophia said when they reached their seats, "this is Ethan Parker, the one who gave me the ride. Ethan, this is my mother, Elena Mendoza." Elena studied Ethan with open curiosity, extending her hand. "Thank you for helping my daughter, Mr. Parker. That was very kind of you." "It was no trouble at all," Ethan replied, shaking her hand. "Your younger daughter is very talented. You must be proud." "Very proud of both my daughters," Elena emphasized, giving Sophia a warm glance. "Please, sit. The second half will start any minute." Ethan settled into the empty seat beside Sophia, aware of Elena's subtle but thorough assessment of him. He'd encountered that maternal evaluation many times before, though usually from the mothers of women his parents thought suitable matches for their successful son. The context here was entirely different, yet the scrutiny felt oddly familiar. The lights dimmed again, and the second act began. The tragedy unfolded on stage with teenage earnestness. The famous ending approached with all the gravity the young actors could muster. Lucia's death scene was performed with such conviction that Sophia found herself genuinely moved, despite knowing every word by heart from her sister's endless practice sessions. Throughout the performance, Sophia was acutely aware of Ethan beside her. Their arms occasionally brushed against each other on the narrow armrest between their seats, causing her to shift slightly each time. She found herself wondering what he was thinking, this wealthy stranger who had unexpectedly inserted himself into her ordinary Thursday evening. When the final bows came, Sophia and Elena were on their feet immediately, applauding enthusiastically as Lucia took her bow. Ethan stood as well, clapping with genuine appreciation. The cast received a standing ovation from the proud parents and supportive friends, the small auditorium filled with cheers and whistles. "We should go backstage," Eleanor said as the applause died down. "Lucia will be looking for us." Sophia nodded, then turned to Ethan. "Would you like to come meet the star of the show? I know she'd appreciate having an audience member who isn't obligated by family ties to say nice things." Ethan looked genuinely conflicted. "I should probably get going. I've already imposed enough on your evening." "Nonsense," Elena interjected firmly. "You must come say hello to Lucia. After helping Sophia, you're practically family tonight." Sophia suppressed a smile at her mother's characteristic assertion of familial connection. In Elena Mendoza's worldview, kindness created instant bonds that couldn't be casually dismissed. "Well, when you put it that way," Ethan conceded with a slight smile, "how could I refuse?" "Ooh." They made their way to the area behind the stage, navigating through clusters of excited parents and friends waiting to congratulate the performers. The backstage space was chaotic. Costume pieces draped over chairs, makeup scattered across tables, and teenagers in varying states of dramatic emotion, embracing and taking selfies. Lucia spotted them almost immediately, her face lighting up as she rushed over, still in her Juliet costume. "You made it!" she exclaimed, throwing her arms around Sophia. "Did you see when Romeo almost dropped me during the balcony scene? I thought we were going to crash right into the fake rosebush. You recovered so smoothly no one even noticed," Sophia assured her, returning the hug. "You were amazing, Lucia. Absolutely perfect." "Truly wonderful, Mija," Elena agreed, embracing her younger daughter with tears of pride in her eyes. "Your father would have been so proud." Lucia beamed at the compliment, then noticed Ethan standing slightly apart from their family circle. Her expressive eyebrows rose questioningly. "Oh," Sophia said, suddenly remembering their guest. "Lucia, this is Ethan Parker. He, helped me get here when I missed my train. Ethan, my sister Lucia, star of stage and screen." "Future star," Lucia corrected with a confident grin, extending her hand with theatrical flair. "So, you're Sophia's knight in shining armor? Or should I say, knight in shiny car?" Ethan laughed, shaking her offered hand. "Nothing so dramatic. Just a convenient ride on a rainy evening. Your performance was remarkable, truly. You have a genuine talent." Lucia practically glowed at the compliment. "Thank you. Are you in theater, or film, or maybe talent management?" The hopeful note in her voice made Sophia wince internally. "I'm afraid not," Ethan replied apologetically. "I'm in software development, much less glamorous." "But much more practical," Elena added approvingly. Lucia's interest visibly dimmed, but her good manners prevailed. "Well, thanks for coming anyway, and for making sure my sister didn't miss my big moment. She promised to be here, and Sophia never breaks her promises." "It was my pleasure," Ethan said sincerely, "but I should let you celebrate with your family now." He turned to Sophia and Elena. "Thank you for allowing me to join you. It was a refreshing change of pace." "Where are you parked?" Sophia asked suddenly. "Do you need a ride back to the station?" "Oh, my driver is waiting," Ethan said, then seemed to register how that sounded in the context of their much more modest circumstances. "I mean, he's on call. It's part of the company arrangement." An awkward silence followed, the disparity in their situations suddenly apparent. Elena broke the tension with practical efficiency. "Well, Mr. Parker, it was lovely to meet you. Thank you again for your kindness to Sophia." "Please, call me Ethan," he replied, "and it was lovely to meet you all as well." He hesitated, then addressed Sophia directly. "Perhaps I'll see you around sometime." Sophia nodded, not entirely convinced that their paths would cross again, but appreciating the sentiment. "Maybe you will. Thanks again for everything." As Ethan made his departure, weaving through the crowded backstage area toward the exit, Lucia turned to Sophia with wide, curious eyes. "Okay, you have to tell me everything," she demanded. "Where did you meet him? What happened? And is he single?" "Lucia!" Elena scolded, though her own expression held similar questions. Sophia rolled her eyes. "It's not like that. I was stranded at the station, he happened to be there, and he offered me a ride. End of story." "People like that don't just offer rides to strangers," Lucia insisted. "He's totally into you." "He was being nice," Sophia countered, though a small part of her wondered about his motivations. Why had he stayed for the play? Why accept her invitation to meet her family? "Anyway, stop making this about me. Tonight is your night. You were incredible up there." "Vin." The distraction worked, and Lucia launched into a detailed account of backstage drama and near disasters that had occurred during the performance. Sophia listened attentively, but part of her mind remained on the strange evening and the unexpected connection with a man from a world so different from her own. Outside the school, Ethan found Raymond waiting patiently in the Audi, engine running and heater on, against the persistent chill of the rainy evening. "Back to Lincoln Park now, sir?" Raymond asked as Ethan settled into the back seat. "Yes, thank you," Ethan replied, his thoughts still inside the school with the Mendoza family. There had been something compelling about their easy affection, the genuine pride they took in each other's accomplishments. He tried to remember the last time his own family had shown such unguarded emotion, and found the memory distant. As the car pulled away from Roosevelt High School, Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out the slightly damp business card Sophia had given him earlier. Elite Cleaning Services, with Sophia's name and number printed in simple black text. He turned it over in his fingers, considering. His spacious Lincoln Park home was already maintained by a service his assistant had arranged. He had no legitimate reason to call for cleaning, but perhaps there was another reason to reach out, though what exactly that might be, he wasn't entirely sure. Ethan tucked the card back into his pocket, gazing out at the rain-slicked streets as they drove through Oak Park toward the city. The evening had been an unexpected detour, so different from his usual routine of work, business dinners, and solitary evenings. For the first time in longer than he could remember, Ethan had been simply a person in a room, not a successful entrepreneur or a potential investor or a valuable contact. Just a man watching a play alongside a woman who treated him with casual normality rather than calculated interest. It had been refreshing and more than a little intriguing. As the city skyline came into view, its lights blurred by rain and distance, Ethan found himself wondering what Sophia Mendoza was doing now, and whether their paths might cross again. The thought lingered as the Audi carried him back to his world of high-rises and harbour views, so close yet so separate from the life he'd glimpsed tonight. 3 days after Lucia's play, Sophia was elbow-deep in cleaning solution, scrubbing at a particularly stubborn wine stain on the marble countertop of a penthouse in Streeterville. Her phone vibrated in her pocket, probably her supervisor with another last-minute assignment. She ignored it, focusing on the task at hand. When she finally checked the message during her break, she froze at the unfamiliar number and unexpected text. "Sophia, this is Ethan Parker. I've been thinking about our conversation regarding your graphic design studies. My company needs some freelance work. Would you be interested in discussing over coffee? No pressure either way." Sophia stared at her phone, conflicting thoughts racing through her mind. Was this legitimate work or just an excuse? Why would someone like him seek out a student for professional design work? Yet the opportunity could be valuable experience for her portfolio. "What kind of work exactly?" she finally replied, caution competing with curiosity. His response came quickly. "We're launching a new app and need some icons redesigned. Nothing huge, but a good starter project. The Wicker Park Coffee Company, tomorrow at 4. Sophia hesitated, then typed, "I can make it. But just to be clear, this is a professional meeting." "Absolutely," came the reply. "Just business." The Wicker Park Coffee Company bustled with afternoon activity. Remote workers hunched over laptops, students highlighting textbooks, and baristas crafting elaborate drinks behind the counter. Sophia arrived 10 minutes early, dressed in her one professional outfit, black pants and a navy blazer over a simple white blouse. She spotted Ethan at a corner table, looking more casual than she'd seen him before, in jeans and a grey sweater that probably cost more than her entire outfit. A sleek laptop sat open in front of him. "You came?" he said as she approached, standing to greet her. "I did," Sophia replied, setting down her worn portfolio case, "though I'm still not entirely sure why." Ethan gestured for her to sit. "Coffee first, then business." With drinks ordered and pleasantries exchanged, Ethan turned his laptop toward her. We're updating our logistics tracking app for smaller businesses. The current icons are, he grimaced, functional but uninspiring. Sophia examined the screen, immediately spotting the issues, generic, outdated symbols with no cohesive style. Her designer's mind began automatically cataloguing improvements. "They're terrible," she said bluntly, then winced at her own directness. "Sorry, that wasn't very diplomatic." "No, please," Ethan laughed. "Honesty is exactly what I need. Tell me what's wrong with them." Sophia warmed to the subject, pointing out inconsistencies in style, poor visibility at smaller scales, and dated design language. As she spoke, her initial nervousness faded, replaced by professional confidence. "I'd completely redesign them with a consistent visual language," she concluded. "Something modern but accessible, with better scalability for mobile views." Ethan nodded, watching her with interest. "That's exactly what we need. Would you be interested in tackling this? It's a small project, 20 icons total, but it could lead to more if you're interested." "What's the timeline and budget?" Sophia asked, surprised at her own businesslike tone. They negotiated terms that seemed more than fair, generous even. Sophia couldn't help wondering if charity factored into his offer, but the project itself was legitimate, and she needed both the money and portfolio piece. "I'll email you the brief and first payment today," Ethan said as they gathered their things. "But before you go, I have to ask, did your mother ever learn you accepted a ride from a stranger, or am I still the mysterious benefactor?" Sophia laughed. "Oh, she thoroughly lectured me about it, then insisted I invite you to Sunday dinner as proper thanks." "Sunday dinner?" Ethan looked genuinely surprised. "Don't worry, I told her you were far too busy with important business things," Sophia assured him quickly. "I wouldn't expect you to sit through one of our chaotic family meals." Ethan was quiet for a moment. "Actually, I don't have plans this Sunday. If the invitation is genuine, I'd be happy to come." Sophia stared at him, certain he was joking. When his expression remained sincere, she found herself saying, 3 o'clock. I'll text you the address. But don't say I didn't warn you about the chaos." The Mendoza apartment occupied the second floor of a well-maintained but modest 3-flat in a working-class neighborhood. When Sophia had texted the address, she'd half expected Ethan to politely back out. Instead, at precisely 3 o'clock on Sunday, the doorbell rang. "He's here," Lucia announced dramatically, peering through the window. "And he brought flowers." "Dios mío," Elena muttered, adjusting her earrings. "Mija, you didn't tell me he was bringing gifts." "I didn't know he was," Sophia replied, suddenly regretting the invitation. What had she been thinking, bringing these worlds together? She opened the door to find Ethan looking uncharacteristically uncertain, holding a bouquet and a bottle of wine. "You actually came," she said, unable to hide her surprise. "You actually invited me," he countered with a small smile. The apartment filled with delicious aromas of Elena's cooking, traditional dishes prepared whenever special guests visited. Conversation flowed more easily than Sophia had feared, with Lucia peppering Ethan with questions about celebrities he might know, none, and Elena subtly investigating his family background and intentions, unclear. "So you own your company?" Elena asked as they enjoyed her famous enchiladas. "I founded it," Ethan corrected. "It was acquired 3 years ago, but I still consult on new projects." "Acquired?" Lucia asked, confused. "He sold it," Sophia explained, "for a lot of money, I'm guessing." Ethan looked uncomfortable with this direction. "I was fortunate. Right place, right time. And brains and hard work," Elena added approvingly. "Success doesn't come from luck alone." The conversation shifted to safer topics. Lucia's future acting plans, Sophia's design classes, neighborhood news. Sophia watched with amazement as Ethan gradually relaxed, laughing genuinely at her mother's stories and engaging with Lucia's theatrical ambitions without condescension. After dinner, when Elena insisted on serving coffee in the living room, Sophia found herself alone with Ethan in the kitchen, helping with dishes. "You didn't have to do this," she said quietly, handing him a plate to dry. "Do what?" Dishes? Ethan asked, carefully wiping the ceramic. Any of it. The job offer. Coming here today. She hesitated. Is this some kind of charity project for you? Helping the struggling immigrant family? Ethan set down the dish towel, turning to face her. Is that what you think? Sophia shrugged, suddenly embarrassed by her outburst. I don't know what to think. Our worlds don't exactly intersect naturally. Maybe they should more often, he said simply. Look, the job is legitimate. We need those icons. And from what I've seen of your portfolio, you're talented. As for today... He glanced toward the living room where Lucia was animatedly describing her next audition to Eleanor. This is the most normal Sunday I've had in years. Normal? Sophia laughed incredulously. My sister has performed 3 different Broadway numbers. My mother has all but asked for your tax returns, and our apartment could fit in your living room. Exactly, Ethan said, a genuine smile transforming his usually serious face. It's real. Do you know how rare that is in my world? Before Sophia could respond, Lucia called from the living room, demanding Ethan's opinion on her monologue for drama club. The moment passed, but Sophia found herself watching him with new eyes as he patiently listened to her sister's theatrical ambitions. When Ethan finally left that evening, with Tupperware of leftovers pressed upon him by Elena and Lucia's dramatic farewell, he paused at the door. Thank you, he said quietly to Sophia, for the normal Sunday. You're welcome for the chaos, she replied with a smile, and I'll have those icon sketches to you by Wednesday. I know you will, he said, then added hesitantly, would it be inappropriate to say I hope to see you again outside of our professional arrangement? Sophia felt a flutter of something unexpected. Probably, but I wouldn't mind if you did anyway. Then I hope to see you again, Sophia Mendoza, Ethan said, his eyes holding hers for a moment longer than necessary, for completely unprofessional reasons. As she closed the door behind him, Sophia leaned against it, ignoring the knowing looks from her mother and sister. Whatever this strange connection was, it had just become more complicated and infinitely more intriguing. The Icon project became a success. What started as 20 simple designs expanded into a comprehensive visual identity for Ethan's new app. Sophia's work impressed not just Ethan, but his entire development team, leading to a steady stream of freelance assignments that doubled her income within weeks. Their professional relationship thrived through emails and occasional coffee meetings, but something else was growing alongside it, something neither was quite ready to acknowledge. These look fantastic, Ethan said one afternoon, scrolling through Sophia's latest designs in a downtown cafe. The marketing team is thrilled. I'm glad they like them, Sophia replied, secretly proud. Her professors had started using her professional work as examples in class. Their meetings had developed a rhythm, beginning with business, inevitably drifting into personal territory. Today was no exception. How's Lucia's college application process going? Ethan asked, closing his laptop. Stressfully. She's set on drama programs we can't afford, Sophia sighed. My mother's trying to convince her that state schools have theater departments too. Has she considered scholarships? Ethan asked, his expression thoughtful. She's applying for everything available, Sophia said, but competition for arts scholarships is brutal. Ethan nodded, then hesitated before changing the subject. I have an industry event this Friday, a charity gala for tech education. Would you consider being my +1? The invitation hung between them, crossing the carefully maintained boundary between their professional and personal lives. As your designer? Sophia asked, needing clarity. As my date, Ethan replied simply. Sophia studied him, this man who had unexpectedly become important in her life. That would definitely complicate things. Yes, he agreed. It would. I should say no, she mused. You probably should, he conceded. What time should I be ready? Sophia asked with a small smile. The Palmer House Hilton ballroom glittered with Chicago's tech elite. Sophia had spent an alarming amount on a simple black dress that wouldn't look out of place among the designer gowns. but still felt conspicuously underdressed as Ethan led her through the crowd. "Everyone's staring," she whispered nervously. "Because you're beautiful," Ethan replied, guiding her with a gentle hand at the small of her back. "Or because they're wondering who the unknown woman with Ethan Parker is," she countered. Introductions blurred together. CEOs, investors, developers. Sophia observed the subtle shifts in their expressions when Ethan introduced her simply as Sophia Mendoza, graphic designer. Some dismissed her immediately, others calculated her potential value to their networks. "Ethan!" "There you are," called a voice, and a tall woman in an impeccable navy suit approached. "I've been looking everywhere for you." "Diane," Ethan nodded. "Let me introduce Sophia Mendoza." "Sophia, this is Diane Winters, my former business partner." Diane's assessment was swift and thorough. "Sophia, lovely to meet you. How did you and Ethan connect?" "I missed a train," Sophia replied with a smile. "Ethan offered a ride." "How serendipitous," Diane commented, her tone suggesting she found it anything but. "Ethan, the Matsuo team is here. They're eager to discuss investment opportunities." Her pointed look excluded Sophia from this conversation. "Give me 5 minutes," Ethan told her, then turned apologetically to Sophia. "Sorry, this is important. I'll be right back." "Go ahead," Sophia assured him. "I'll get a drink." As Ethan was led away, Sophia retreated to the bar, feeling out of place amid the wealth and connections that flowed as freely as the champagne. "First time at one of these?" asked a friendly voice beside her. Sophia turned to find a woman about her age, with cropped hair and a relaxed demeanor that seemed at odds with the formal setting. "Is it that obvious?" Sophia laughed. "Only because you're actually observing instead of networking. I'm Zoe Chen, by the way. I run an educational technology startup. Sophia Mendoza, I design things." They fell into easy conversation, with Zoe explaining the various power players in the room and their connections. Sophia found herself relaxing for the first time that evening. "So you're with Ethan Parker," Zoe noted eventually. "That's generated quite the buzz." Sophia tensed. "We work together. I'm designing for his new app." "Right," Zoe said skeptically, "and he brings all his contractors to charity galas as dates." Before Sophia could respond, Ethan returned, looking apologetic. "Sorry about that. Diane can be persistent." "No problem," Sophia assured him. "Zoe's been giving me the insider's guide to tech industry politics." "Zoe Chen," Ethan acknowledged with respect. "Your education platform is impressive. My foundation might be interested in discussing partnerships." "Always happy to talk." Zoe handed him a card, then winked at Sophia. "Nice meeting you, Sophia. Don't let these tech bros intimidate you." As she departed, Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Making friends? She's nice," Sophia shrugged, "and not trying to figure out if I'm sleeping with you for career advancement, which is refreshing." Ethan winced. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have brought you into this Shark Tank." "It's fine," Sophia said. "But I am curious, what exactly are we doing, Ethan? Because this feels less like networking and more like—" She trailed off. "More like I wanted to spend the evening with you," he finished honestly, "and I'm not very good at separating my worlds." The orchestra began playing, and couples moved toward the dance floor. "Would you like to dance?" Ethan asked, offering his hand. Sophia hesitated only briefly before taking it. "Fair warning, I learned from YouTube tutorials." "I learned from a private instructor my mother insisted on," Ethan admitted with embarrassment. "So we're equally disadvantaged." As they moved across the floor, Sophia was acutely aware of curious glances, but found herself caring less with each step. Whatever this complicated thing between them was, it felt worth exploring. "Your friend Diane doesn't approve of me," Sophia noted as they danced. "Diane doesn't approve of anything that might distract from business," Ethan replied. "She thinks personal connections are inefficient." "And what do you think?" Sophia asked, meeting his eyes. "I think I've been efficient my entire life," Ethan said quietly, "and I'm starting to wonder what I've been missing." The moment was interrupted by a commotion near the entrance. Photographers had arrived, documenting the charitable contributions of Chicago's elite. "We should probably avoid those," Ethan said, guiding Sophia away from the cameras. "Unless you want to be the subject of tech industry gossip." "Definitely not," Sophia agreed. "My mother would have a heart attack if she saw my face in some society page." They retreated to a quieter corner where Ethan checked his watch. "We've made our obligatory appearance. Would you like to escape?" "God, yes," Sophia said with relief. "Where to?" "Somewhere with better food and fewer venture capitalists," Ethan suggested. "I know a place." The place turned out to be a tiny Mexican restaurant in Pilsen with mismatched chairs and the best tacos Sophia had eaten outside her mother's kitchen. The owner greeted Ethan by name, surprising Sophia. "You come here often?" she asked as they settled at a corner table, Ethan still in his tuxedo, looking absurdly out of place. "At least twice a month," Ethan admitted. "Found it during a particularly bad week 3 years ago. Salvador's cooking saved my sanity during the acquisition negotiations." Over simple, perfect food, their conversation flowed without the pretense of business. Sophia found herself sharing stories of her childhood in Mexico before her family moved to Chicago when she was 8, of her father's death 5 years ago, of dreams deferred but not abandoned. Ethan spoke of the isolation of success, of parents whose approval always seemed just out of reach, of building something meaningful only to watch it become another corporate asset. "Why did you sell your company if you loved it so much?" Sophia asked, genuinely curious. Ethan considered the question. "The practical answer is that the offer was too good to refuse. The honest answer is that I was afraid of failing. Selling meant freezing our success in amber, never having to risk watching it crumble. And now? Now I'm trying to figure out what matters," Ethan said, his eyes holding hers. "What's worth the risk of failure?" The implication hung between them, neither quite ready to address it directly. Later, as they stood outside her apartment building, the evening's disparate pieces, gala glamour and simple tacos, wealth and work, different worlds briefly intersecting, seemed like a perfect metaphor for whatever was growing between them. "Thank you for tonight," Sophia said, suddenly shy. "I should be thanking you," Ethan replied. "You made an unbearable event enjoyable, and then let me drag you to my secret restaurant in evening wear." "It was worth it for those tacos," she smiled. The moment stretched between them, the inevitable question of a good-night kiss hovering in the air. Sophia saw Ethan lean slightly forward, hesitate, then straighten again, respecting the unspoken boundary. "Good night, Sophia," he said softly. "Good night, Ethan," she replied, feeling both relief and disappointment as she turned toward her door. Before entering, she looked back to see him still standing there, watching to ensure she got in safely. Something shifted in her heart, a recognition that whatever complicated thing existed between them, it wasn't just about different worlds colliding anymore. It was about finding unexpected common ground in the space between those worlds. "This is ridiculous," Sophia muttered to herself, deleting the text message draft for the 3rd time. 2 weeks had passed since the gala night, and while their professional communications continued seamlessly, the personal dimension remained unresolved. Her phone rang. Not Ethan, but Lucia. "Emergency," her sister declared without preamble. "NYU's drama program representative is visiting Chicago next week for special interviews, and I got selected." "That's amazing," Sophia replied genuinely, pushing aside her own confusion to celebrate her sister's achievement. "But I need help with my portfolio and monologue," Lucia continued breathlessly. "This could be my one shot at a scholarship." Sophia's heart sank slightly. She'd been planning to use the weekend to complete a large project for one of her new clients, secured through Ethan's connections. "Of course I'll help," she promised. "We'll make sure you're prepared." After hanging up, Sophia stared at her calendar, trying to figure out how to rearrange everything. Her phone buzzed with a text. Ethan this time. "Free for dinner tonight. Need to discuss the Henderson project. Also, I haven't seen you in 2 weeks. The straightforward admission made her smile. She typed back, "Can't tonight. Lucia has a big audition opportunity. Rain check." His reply came quickly. "What kind of opportunity? Anything I can help with?" Sophia hesitated, her pride warring with practicality. Ethan had connections that could help Lucia, but accepting that help felt like crossing a line she wasn't sure should be crossed. Before she could decide, another text arrived. "No pressure. Just want to help if I can." She took a deep breath and called him. "You didn't have to do this," Sophia said for the third time, as she and Ethan walked through the campus of Northwestern University later that week. Professor Allison Chen, head of the theater department and Ethan's former college classmate, had agreed to meet with Lucia to review her portfolio. "It's just a phone call to an old friend," Ethan shrugged. "Allison's one of the most respected theater educators in the Midwest. Her feedback will be valuable regardless of what happens with NYU." Sophia stopped walking, turning to face him directly. "This isn't just a phone call, and we both know it. This is you using your influence to open doors that wouldn't otherwise open." Ethan met her gaze steadily. "Is that a bad thing?" "I don't know," Sophia admitted. "It feels complicated." "Life is complicated," Ethan said simply. "Look, I'm not guaranteeing Lucia anything except honest feedback from someone who knows what NYU will be looking for. What she does with that feedback is entirely up to her." Sophia nodded slowly. "Thank you. I'm sorry if I seem ungrateful. I'm just not used to—" "Accepting help," Ethan suggested. "Exactly. I've noticed," he said with a small smile. "It's one of many things I admire about you." The compliment hung between them, another piece of the unspoken thing they'd been dancing around. "We should go," Sophia said, breaking the moment. "Lucia's probably already talking Professor Chen's ear off about her Broadway ambitions." Professor Chen turned out to be a straight-talking woman in her 50s who showed no deference to Ethan's wealth or status. After reviewing Lucia's portfolio and watching her perform 2 contrasting monologues, she offered detailed, constructive criticism that left even the usually confident Lucia nodding thoughtfully. "You have raw talent," Chen told her, "but your technique needs refinement. Your Shakespeare is particularly promising. I'd focus there for the NYU audition rather than the contemporary piece." Sophia watched her sister absorb the professional feedback with unusual seriousness, taking notes and asking intelligent questions. When they finally left the professor's office, Lucia was quiet, processing everything she'd learned. "She's amazing," Lucia finally said as they walked toward the parking lot where Ethan waited. "Terrifying, but amazing." "Did it help?" Sophia asked. "Completely," Lucia nodded emphatically. "I need to rework basically everything, but now I know exactly how." She paused, glancing toward Ethan in the distance. "Your boyfriend is pretty cool for arranging this." "He's not my boyfriend," Sophia corrected automatically. Lucia raised a skeptical eyebrow. "Sure, and I'm not going to be the youngest Tony Award winner in history." "That's different. Your ambition is clear. Whatever's happening with Ethan and me is undefined." "Maybe it's time to define it," Lucia suggested with unusual maturity. "He looks at you the way Romeo looked at Juliet." "That ended in double suicide," Sophia pointed out dryly. "Details," Lucia waved dismissively. "The point is, there's something real there. Don't miss it because you're afraid of complications." Sophia considered her younger sister with surprise. "When did you get so wise about relationships?" "I'm an actress," Lucia replied loftily. "I study human emotion professionally." But they reached the car laughing, and Ethan looked between them with curiosity. "Good session." "Life-changing," Lucia declared dramatically. "Also, I'm starving. Can we get pizza?" Later that evening, after dropping Lucia at home with promises to help her practice all weekend, Sophia and Ethan walked along the lakefront. The early October air carried a crisp chill, and Sophia pulled her jacket tighter around her. "Thank you again for today," she said, breaking their comfortable silence. It meant a lot to Lucia. "I was happy to help," Ethan replied. "Professor Chen was impressed with her, said she has more natural talent than most of her undergraduates." They reached a bench facing the water and sat, watching the lights of boats moving across the darkened lake. "Can I ask you something?" Sophia said suddenly. "Something personal?" "Of course." "Why me?" She turned to face him. "You could date successful executives or sophisticated socialites who understand your world. Instead, you're spending time with a cleaning lady who's studying design at community college." Ethan considered her question carefully. "First, you're much more than your job title. Second," he paused, gathering his thoughts, "those sophisticated socialites you mentioned. They want Ethan Parker, tech success story. They don't care about the person behind that label." He looked out at the lake. "When we first met, you treated me like a normal human being. Do you know how rare that is? You weren't impressed by my car or my success. You were suspicious, actually." He smiled at the memory. It was refreshing. Sophia nodded slowly, understanding. "So I'm novel, the working-class girl who doesn't fawn over your wealth." "That's not what I meant," Ethan said sharply, then softened. "You're authentic, Sophia. Everything about you is real. Your love for your family, your determination, your talent. You don't pretend to be something you're not." He turned toward her on the bench. "I've spent years in environments where everyone is performing, myself included. With you, I don't feel the need to perform. I can just be." The honesty in his voice touched something deep within her. Sophia found herself at a crossroads, continue maintaining careful distance or acknowledge the connection they both clearly felt. "I like who you are," she said softly. "Not the successful businessman, though that's impressive. I'd like the man who sits through high school Shakespeare plays and eats tacos in a tuxedo and helps my sister because it matters to me." Ethan's hand found hers on the bench between them, their fingers intertwining naturally. "So where does that leave us?" "Complicated," Sophia admitted. "Our worlds are still very different, Ethan. Maybe they don't have to be separate worlds," he suggested. "Maybe they could just be different parts of the same world. Our world." The idea was simultaneously appealing and terrifying. Sophia thought of her mother's cautions about getting involved with someone from such a different background, of the practical challenges, of the scrutiny they'd face. But she also thought of the connection they shared, the understanding that had developed between them, the way her heart raced when he was near. "I'd like to try," she said finally, "to see if we can build something real between these different parts." Ethan's smile was genuine, lighting his usually serious face. "I'd like that too." This time, when he leaned toward her, neither hesitated. Their kiss was gentle, tentative at first, then deepening with the acknowledgement of feelings that had been growing for weeks. When they finally pulled apart, Sophia felt both certainty and apprehension about the path they were choosing. "Fair warning," she said, still close enough to feel his breath on her face. "My mother is going to have a lot of questions." Ethan laughed softly. "I think I can handle Elena's interrogation. And your world, the galas and investors and business partners, are you ready for their questions too?" His expression grew more serious. "Let them talk. What matters is what's real between us, not what others think." Sophia wished she could share his confidence, but years of living in a world where differences in wealth and status mattered had taught her caution. Still, as they walked hand in hand along the shore, she allowed herself to hope that maybe, just maybe, they could build a bridge between their worlds strong enough to last. What neither of them noticed was a woman taking photos from a discreet distance. Diane Winters had spotted them by chance and, seeing an opportunity, had documented their intimate moment. By morning, those photos would create complications neither had anticipated. Sophia knew something was wrong the moment she entered Elite Cleaning Services office Monday morning. Her supervisor, Margaret, called her in immediately, expression unreadable. "Sophia, have you seen this?" Margaret placed a tablet on the desk, open to a tech industry blog. The headline made Sophia's stomach drop. Tech millionaire, Ethan Parker's secret romance with cleaning staff? Below were photos of their lakefront kiss, alongside unflattering speculation about their relationship. The article implied Sophia was using Ethan for financial gain and questioned whether clients should be concerned about staff boundaries. "This is personal, not professional," Sophia said, fighting to keep her voice steady. "It has nothing to do with my work." "Several clients have called with concerns," Margaret replied carefully, "including residents at the Pinnacle." "Concerns about what?" "That I'm dating someone. That you might have used your position to initiate a relationship with a wealthy client." Sophia felt her face burn with humiliation and anger. "That's not what happened." "I believe you," Margaret assured her. "But perception matters in this business. We're reassigning you to different properties for now." It wasn't technically a demotion, but the implication was clear. She was now considered a potential liability. Outside, Sophia's phone buzzed with texts from Ethan. "Have you seen it? I'm so sorry, call me." Instead, she called her mother. "I've seen it," Eleanor said before Sophia could speak. "Mrs. Alvarez from church already asked if you were getting married." "Mama, I'm so embarrassed." "Why?" Elena's voice was surprisingly firm. "You've done nothing wrong. Hold your head high." Sophia hadn't expected this reaction. "You're not upset? About gossip? No. About your heart? Maybe. But that's your decision to make, mija. Just be careful." Sophia ended the call, feeling marginally better, but still unsure how to proceed. Before she could decide, her phone rang. Ethan. "I can fix this," he said immediately. "I've already had my lawyer contact the blog. The photos will be taken down." "That won't undo what people have seen," Sophia replied, leaning against a wall for support. "My company's reassigning me because clients are concerned." "That's ridiculous." Ethan sounded genuinely angry. "I'll speak to them." "No," Sophia interrupted firmly. "That would only make it worse. This is exactly what I was afraid of, our worlds colliding messily." A silence stretched between them. Finally, Ethan spoke quietly. "What do you need from me right now?" The question caught her off guard. She'd expected him to push his solution, to try to fix everything. Instead, he was asking what she needed. "Space," she admitted. "Time to figure this out without more complications." "Okay," he agreed, though she could hear the reluctance in his voice. "But please don't disappear completely. This doesn't change how I feel about you." After hanging up, Sophia walked aimlessly, trying to process the sudden public exposure of something that had barely begun to form. By evening, her embarrassment had hardened into determination. She wouldn't let faceless gossips define her relationship or her career. 3 days of silence from Sophia left Ethan distracted and irritable. The blog had removed the photos after legal threats, but the damage was done. Industry acquaintances sent knowing looks or made thinly veiled comments about interesting personal choices. Diane had called to express concern that his situation might impact investor confidence in their new venture. The subtext was clear: distance yourself from this potential scandal. Ethan's response had been uncharacteristically blunt. "My personal life is not up for discussion or committee approval, Diane." Now, sitting in his home office surrounded by the trappings of success that suddenly seemed hollow, Ethan made a decision. He wouldn't let Sophia face this alone, but he would respect her request for space. There had to be a middle ground. Sophia arrived home Friday evening to find a large package outside their apartment door. Inside was a professional-quality graphics tablet, the expensive kind she'd mentioned wanting during one of their conversations, and a simple note: "For your upcoming finals, no strings attached. E." She smiled despite herself. It was exactly what she needed for her portfolio project, and the "no strings attached" acknowledged her need for independence without abandoning the connection between them. Later that night, she texted him, "Thank you for the tablet. It's perfect." His reply came quickly. "You're welcome. How are you doing?" "Managing. My professor loves the work I've been doing for your app. Asked if it's a real client or invented." What did you tell him? Sophia hesitated, then wrote, "The truth, that it started as a chance encounter and developed into something unexpected." "That pretty much sums us up," Ethan replied. Sophia felt something tight in her chest loosen. Maybe they could find their way through this after all. 2 weeks later, Sophia stood nervously outside the NYU representative's temporary office at a downtown hotel. Lucia paced the hallway in her carefully selected future Broadway star outfit. "You're going to be amazing," Sophia assured her, straightening Lucia's collar. "What if they hate me?" Lucia whispered, her usual confidence faltering. "Impossible," Sophia replied firmly. "Just remember Professor Chen's advice." The door opened, and a smiling woman invited Lucia in. Sophia gave her sister's hand a final squeeze, then settled into a waiting area chair, pulling out her phone to distract herself. A text from Ethan appeared. "Thinking of Lucia today. Let me know how it goes." Sophia smiled, typing back, "Just went in. I'm nervous enough for both of us. She'll be brilliant, like her sister." The simple compliment warmed her. Their communication had been cautious but steady over the past weeks. Professional updates, occasional personal messages, rebuilding what had been temporarily derailed. Sophia had used the time to reflect on what she truly wanted. The gossip had faded as quickly as it had flared, replaced by newer scandals. Her work assignments had returned to normal after clients realized she remained the same professional she'd always been. When Lucia emerged 45 minutes later, her expression was unreadable until the office door closed. Then she broke into a blinding smile. She said my classical monologue was one of the strongest she's seen this year, Lucia whispered excitedly, and she loved my portfolio. I'm on the shortlist for scholarship consideration. Sophia hugged her sister tightly, genuine pride overwhelming her. I knew you could do it. As they left the building, Sophia impulsively called Ethan instead of texting. She nailed it, she said when he answered. Shortlisted for a scholarship. That's fantastic, Ethan replied, his smile evident in his voice. We should celebrate. All of us. The we struck Sophia with unexpected force. The simple inclusion, the assumption of shared joy in her family's milestone. Yes, she agreed. We should. The celebration dinner took place at the Mendoza apartment. Ethan had offered to take them somewhere fancy, but Sophia had insisted on home ground. Elena prepared a feast. Lucia dramatically reenacted her audition multiple times, and Ethan brought ridiculously expensive champagne that they drank from mismatched glasses. Later, when Lucia was showing Elena something on her phone and the dishes were cleared, Sophia and Ethan stood on the small apartment balcony, looking at the neighborhood lights. Thank you for being part of this, Sophia said quietly. It means a lot to Lucia, to all of us. Thank you for letting me be part of it, Ethan replied. These past weeks have given me time to think about what matters. And what did you decide? Sophia asked, turning toward him. That connection is worth more than convenience. That building something real is more important than avoiding complications. He took her hand carefully. That you matter more than what anyone in my industry thinks. Sophia studied his face, seeing the sincerity there. I've been thinking too, about bridges between different worlds and whether they can hold. What did you decide? Ethan echoed her question. That some bridges are worth building, even if they're challenging. She squeezed his hand. And that I don't want to miss this connection because I'm afraid of the work involved. Ethan's smile was slow and genuine. So we try, really try this time. No holding back because our backgrounds are different. No guarantees either, Sophia cautioned. Just two people seeing where this goes, day by day. Day by day works for me, Ethan agreed, though I should warn you I'm already pretty certain about how I feel. Sophia laughed softly. Always the efficient businessman, already looking at the bottom line. Not this time, Ethan said, drawing her closer. This time I'm enjoying the journey, wherever it leads. Their kiss was different from their first, more certain, more grounded in understanding of the challenges and possibilities ahead. When they broke apart, Sophia felt none of the anxiety that had followed their previous connection, only a quiet certainty. Inside, Lucia's dramatic voice carried through the open door. "When I win my first Tony Award, I'm going to thank Professor Chen for her brutally honest feedback, and Sophia for believing in me even when I was doing terrible community theater productions." "Your sister's confidence is inspiring," Ethan murmured, amused. "It's genetic," Sophia replied with a smile. "Once we decide on something, Mendoza women are pretty unstoppable." "I'm counting on that," Ethan said, his expression turning serious, "because what's growing between us is going to need some of that determination." "Good thing I have plenty," Sophia assured him, taking his hand firmly in hers. "Enough for whatever comes next." As they rejoined the celebration inside, Sophia reflected on the strange serendipity that had brought them together. A missed train, a chance encounter, two people from different worlds finding unexpected common ground. Their story had begun with a missed connection. But perhaps, Sophia thought as she watched Ethan laughing with her family, the connections that really mattered were the ones they were building now, day by day, between their once separate worlds. 6 months later, Sophia checked her phone before heading into her graphic design interview at one of Chicago's top agencies. A text from Ethan flashed on the screen. "You've got this. Your portfolio is brilliant. Call me after to celebrate your new job." Sophia smiled, tucking the phone away. Her portfolio case now held professional work from multiple clients. None of them secured through Ethan's connections after their first project together. They'd both been careful about maintaining professional boundaries alongside their deepening personal relationship. Lucia had received her NYU scholarship and was already planning her triumphant move to New York. Elena had finally stopped interrogating Ethan about his intentions at every Sunday dinner he attended. And Sophia had found her footing in the space between worlds, not belonging fully to either, but creating something new and uniquely theirs. As she entered the interview room confidently, Sophia carried with her the certainty that some connections, despite their unlikely beginnings, were meant to be found, even if the journey began with a missed train and an unexpected ride home.